The auction block trembled beneath her bare feet, the splintered wood biting into her soles as the crowd's jeers clawed at her heart. She was just 19, Lila May, a girl with dreams bigger than the dusty Texas plains, now reduced to a transaction, her fate sealed by a father too drunk to care and a stepmother too greedy to stop. Tears stung her eyes as the gavel slammed down, and the grizzled old rancher, Silas Harrow, leered from the crowd, his tobacco-stained grin promising a life of misery. Sold for a handful of coins and a plot of land, Lila's world shattered in that single, deafening moment. But somewhere beyond the horizon, a quiet cowboy named Eli rode through the twilight, his shadowed eyes fixed on a purpose no one could name, a purpose that would soon collide with her despair and ignite a spark of hope. Lila's journey to this wretched day had been a slow descent. Born to a gentle mother who died too young, she'd grown up under the care of her father, Jonah, a man once kind but broken by grief and whiskey. When he married Clara, a sharp-tongued woman with a heart of stone, Lila's life unraveled. Clara saw her as a burden, a pretty face to be bartered. By 19, Lila's dreams of teaching school or singing in a city saloon were buried beneath Clara's schemes. The drought had ruined their small farm, and Jonah's debts piled high. Silas Harrow's got land and money, Clara hissed one night, her voice cold as the wind. He'll take you, and we'll be free. Lila begged, sobbed, pleaded, but Jonah, lost in a bottle, signed her away. Now, as Silas dragged her to his creaking wagon, his calloused hand bruising her wrist, Lila felt the weight of a future chained to a man thrice her age. Cruel and unyielding, the Harrow ranch sprawled across barren hills, a kingdom of dust and decay. Silas was a tyrant, his temper flaring like wildfire. He forced Lila to cook, clean, and mend from dawn to dusk, his bellowed orders punctuated by the crack of a belt when she faltered. Her hands bled from scrubbing, her spirit bruised by his taunts. You're mine, girl, bought and paid for. Nights were the worst, her heart pounding as she barred her door against his drunken advances, praying for a miracle. The other ranch hands, rough men with hollow eyes, offered no help, fearing Silas's wrath. Lila's hope flickered like a dying candle, her dreams of freedom fading with each grueling day. She whispered to the stars, someone, anyone, save me, never imagining a quiet cowboy was already riding toward her. Eli Jackson was no stranger to hardship. A drifter at 25, he'd lost his family to a fever, his home to a fire, and his trust to a world that chewed up the weak. Tall and lean, with eyes like storm clouds and a voice soft as a prairie breeze, Eli kept to himself, his past a shadow he wouldn't name. He'd heard whispers of Silas Harrow's cruelty, tales of beaten hands and a girl sold like cattle while mending fences at a neighboring spread. Something stirred in Eli, a quiet fire, a need to right a wrong. He saddled his mare, Daisy, and rode for the Harrow ranch, his jaw set, his heart steady. He took work as a hand, blending into the dust and toil, watching Lila from afar, her fragile frame, her haunted hazel eyes, the way she hummed a tune to keep despair at bay. Eli knew saving her wouldn't be easy, but he'd faced storms before. Their first challenge came swift and brutal. Silas caught Eli lingering near the barn, offering Lila a canteen after a long day in the sun. "Keep your eyes off my property, boy," Silas roared, his fist crashing into Eli's jaw. Blood trickled, but Eli stood tall, silent, his gaze locking with Lila's for a fleeting second, a promise unspoken. She felt a flicker of something new, a warmth amid the cold. But Silas's jealousy grew, and he chained Lila's days tighter, locking her in a shed at night, the walls closing in like a tomb. Hunger gnawed at her, exhaustion weakened her, and fear whispered she'd never escape. Yet Eli didn't waver. He slipped her bread through a crack, whispered, "Hold on, Lila," and began to plan, his quiet strength a lifeline in her dark. The second challenge tested their resolve. Eli needed allies, but the ranch hands were loyal to fear, not justice. One night, under a sliver of moon, he approached Jed, a grizzled old-timer with a limp and a shred of conscience. "She don't deserve this, Jed," Eli murmured, his voice low. Jed hesitated, torn. Silas paid his wage, but Lila's quiet courage reminded him of a daughter lost long ago. A storm loomed, and Eli saw a chance. Rain would mask their tracks. Jed agreed to help, but word slipped, and Silas's rage erupted. He cornered Eli with a shotgun, snarling, "You think you can steal what's mine?" Lila, hearing the shouts, broke free from the shed with a rusted nail, her hands trembling but her will fierce. She stumbled into the fray, distracting Silas, and Eli tackled him, the gun firing wild into the night. Bruised and battered, they faced a choice: run now, or lose everything. The escape was their greatest trial. Rain lashed down, turning the earth to mud as Eli, Lila, and Jed fled on horseback, Silas's furious shouts echoing behind. The old rancher rallied his men, their lanterns bobbing like demons in the storm. Lila clung to Eli, her body weak but her spirit awakening, his steady grip a shield against the chaos. The river ahead raged, swollen and swift, a barrier to freedom. "We cross or we're caught," Eli said, his eyes meeting hers, a quiet trust binding them. Jed faltered, fear gripping him, but Lila's plea, "You're my family now," spurred him on. They plunged in, the current clawing at them, horses snorting in panic. Eli's arm steadied Lila, and they emerged, soaked and shaking, on the other side. Silas's men faltered at the water's edge, their pursuit drowned by the torrent. Days turned to weeks, the trio hiding in canyons and small towns, always moving. Hunger stung, and the law, swayed by Silas's lies, branded them outlaws. Lila battled doubt, whispering to Eli one night, "What if I'm not worth this?" He took her hand, his voice soft but firm, "You're worth everything, Lila. You're free now, don't let him chain your heart." His words mended her, and she began to see herself not as a sold girl, but a survivor. Eli, too, healed, her courage lighting the shadows of his past. Jed found purpose, a father's pride in their grit. They faced one last scare. Silas's hired tracker, a wiry man with a pistol, cornered them at a barn. But Lila, no longer a victim, stood tall, her voice steady, "You tell him I'm gone for good." Eli's quiet presence and Jed's shotgun backed her, and the tracker rode off, defeated. In a quiet valley, they found sanctuary, a small town where a kind widow took them in. Lila learned to read and write, her dream of teaching blooming anew. Eli built a life beside her, his quiet love a foundation stronger than stone. Jed stayed, a gruff guardian, his limp eased by peace. Silas's reach faded, his lies unheeded, his power broken by their defiance. Years later, Lila stood before a schoolhouse, children laughing, Eli's hand in hers, and felt the weight of her journey lift. She'd been just 19 when they sold her, a girl broken by greed, but a quiet cowboy came for her, and together they'd forged a path to freedom. Their story, born of pain, ended in hope, a testament to the power of courage, love, and the will to rise above. For anyone listening, the message rang clear: no matter how dark the chain, you can break it, and someone, somewhere, might just ride through the storm to help you stand again.